Hello. Sorry if I started a little bit late, but I was having a late second dinner composed of marzipan chocolate slab and some watered down Aperol. Super healthy stuff. And yeah, I was actually quite tired. I didn't really mean to do a stream, but then I got this email from Adam Piggott, who some of you may know. He writes a blog called, I think, Pushing Rubber, Downhill, Uphill, something like that. Hello, Chad. And anyway, he sent me a link to this video, which I've posted in the description. And hopefully, I've got two descriptions. Hopefully, the longer one appears, because it's called Message in a Bottle. It's on YouTube, and it's pretty recent. It only came out a couple of weeks ago or something. But it's got some okay references, but the gist of the whole video is like that Ratzinger is really the Pope, and he really exposed all the Freemasons by doing his false resignation so that, hello BLR, so that everybody would be able to see that actually, the Vatican is infiltrated with satanic pederasts. Oh yeah, Ratzinger, the hero, exposes all of this, which is, of course, complete, total, and utter nonsense. And again, at the usual risk of blowing my own horn, if you have read this book, it should be pretty clear that Ratzinger is no more Pope than an Eskimo that has never heard of the Catholic Church. And in fact, he's less likely to be Pope than such a guy, because such a guy could be a decent human being, while Ratzinger is not. Absolutely not. He is scum of the earth, just like all the other fake popes since Pius XII. And let me add that in one of the descriptions, which I hope is the one that comes up, I put a link to another video, about 15 minutes long, of a lady who's 54, I believe, at the time of doing the video, who testifies to the fact that Ratzinger was involved in child sacrifice. And she describes an event, a satanic black mass, that happened in the Vatican, which, by the way, is almost identical to the description of the same thing in Windswept House, which was written by Malachi Martin, who essentially quit being a priest and quit being part of the Vatican, and had papal authority to do so, fake papal authority though it may have been, and lived the rest of his life as a layman, although I believe he never indulged in any of the things that laymen can indulge in, such as relations with women and so on. He was obviously quite torn about the whole situation, but to my knowledge, he didn't actually become a sedeprivationist or a sedevacantist, but he decided he was going to sort of expose things in a different way. Anyway, the point is that Ratzinger was one of the architects of Vatican II. He was part of the German mafia, which is very closely connected to the Galilean mafia, which is the lavender mafia, as they call it. The group of gay fake priests that keep pushing the whole Freemasonic agenda. And it was Ratzinger, and this is admitted also in this little documentary, it was Ratzinger that elected a bunch of the Galilean mafia fake clerics, bishops, to the cardinalate, made them cardinals. And even within the documentary it says, well, this makes no sense at all, unless this was his way of exposing them by then doing the fake resignation. Aha. No. Ratzi the Nazi was in the Hitler Youth. I do absolutely believe, although I can't prove it, there's the testimony of the people. Why would a 54-year-old woman go in front of videos and actually state what happened to her when she was 4 years old by her own grandfather and Ratzinger and others that were there at this satanic mass? Who needs to do that? She doesn't look to me like a lady that, is trying to get attention or that kind of, attention whore or whatever. Nothing like that. That is a person that had traumatic experiences happen. And regardless, it's my opinion, all right? I can't physically prove it. I don't have video evidence of it. But I'm absolutely convinced that all those satanic bastards that are currently in the Vatican are the worst kind of scum. I absolutely believe they perform child sacrifice. I absolutely believe they rape kids. I absolutely believe they're involved in child trafficking and other very disgusting things. And that is why I wrote the book Reclaiming the Catholic Church. That is why I wrote Believe. And you've got to keep in mind, as if you're a normal guy and you're looking at this, you think, oh, well, that Kurgan guy is really a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Well, listen up. I mean, since the age of 26, when I wrote The Face on Mars, I was aware of many, very many things, including the number of people that the Clintons have had killed, which is now common knowledge. But it was over 50 people 26 years ago. Most of you haven't got a clue about that. I did. Most of you haven't got a clue about a little book called Transformation America, which describes sex slaves from the MK Ultra program, which people like Hillary Clinton used to satisfy her lesbian urges. Again, we now have videos, okay, of the son of the supposed president of the biggest banana republic on earth raping, molesting little Chinese girls while he's, snorting up and doing crack cocaine or whatever it is. I'm not conversant with that sort of stuff about the drugs. There's videos online. There's places you can go to see the whole of the, Hunter Biden laptop. Okay. There are emails that prove that he gave $10 million to his own dad, and that the Chinese have him in his pockets because they provided these little girls that he raped and did whatever else. We have laptops that supposedly show Hillary Clinton cutting the face off a little girl and eating it. And you can tell me that this all sounds totally crazy. Well, guess what? There is so much shit that I've known for decades which sounded totally crazy, which is now common knowledge. So for those of you that are getting shocked out of your skin and thinking that this is too horrible to believe, I'm sorry. But which part of "will live under the dominion of Satan" did you not understand? We are on a prison planet that is filled with lies from top to bottom. And some of you will despair about that. Then those people are weak. Clearly not Catholic, and clearly not the type of people I want in the Kurganate, whether it's a digital Kurganate or whether it's a physical Kurganate. Because if you're Catholic, it doesn't matter. If you're in the bowels of hell, okay? Your duty as a Catholic is to fight on to your last breath. That is why we're called the Church Militant. So don't you go pussing out on me and going, yeah, well, there's pedophiles everywhere. It's pedophiles all the way down. What can I do? I'm just one person. There's plenty you can do. Plenty. And depending on your inclinations, your skills, your dexterity, you'll take different approaches. Rebuild the Catholic Church, rebuild Catholic communities, and fight back in whichever way appeals to your particular character and inclinations and possibilities and opportunities. Remember that as Catholics, we are special forces behind enemy lines. The enemy lines are this whole planet. You're on it. Welcome. Charles Hilton. I have been following the Dimon brothers for a while. Someone mentioned you, so I was looking into your videos. Interesting. Welcome, Charles. I quite like the Dimon brothers. They've been accused of all sorts of things, but I have made reference to their work several times in here, giving them full credit and providing links to their work. I pretty much agree with just about everything they say. The one exception is baptism of desire and possibly baptism of blood. I did write them an email about it, clarifying my position and asking them to comment on it. Never received a response. I know they do receive their emails because friends of mine have written to them and have received responses on other matters. But for whatever reason, they didn't respond. I personally believe because my position is correct, theirs is slightly in error, and perhaps they've been invested too much into their error, let's call it that. And also they get attacked a lot, so I quite understand if they want to dismiss my request for counter, let's say, thinking I'm just some guy that hates them and wants to bring them down. That's not the case. I find their work to be quite useful and correct. And Chad says, if you want to chicken out, you have 40,000 options. And that's only counting the Protestants, because I mean, you bring in the Hindus and the Buddhists and the atheists and the agnostics, and wow, probably 50,000. So, well, there you have it. Essentially, that's just my little rant about Ratzi the Nazi, because, look, I'm busy. Okay, I am busy. I've got an unreal amount of stuff to do. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and I'm just a human being. I've got my limits, although they are well beyond normal human limits, I think. Wait, let me just. Oh God, I've got so much stuff here that I don't know why I do this. I start the stream and then it's just like the things that I'm looking at on my desk start to bother me, and then I start to half organize my nonsense. Why is this so thick? What have I got in here? Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes. Let's put that over there. So yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff to do. Half the kitchen to try and sort out with a stove, painting the whole damn house. We're gonna have, very luckily, my battle priest is coming to visit. So we're gonna have a couple of masses here. We're gonna have a baptism at my place. And you can see behind me, I mean, it literally looks like I just tried to move in last night. And the rest of the house is not much better off than my study. In fact, some of it is a bit worse. So, there's still plenty of work to do outside the house, but I'm gonna, for a few days, just focus on the inside of the house, just try and, get the lounge maybe sorted out if I can. If I can get the lounge and the dining/kitchen area sorted, that would be a huge improvement. It would allow us to unpack a bunch of boxes. It will allow me to, clear out a little bit of the crap that you see in my office here. So I got plenty to do, but my mission, which will last the rest of my days, is to do everything I can to reclaim the Catholic Church in every way that I can, in every aspect that I can. The long-term plan is to build a community of Catholics, get a chapel built here, if need be, on my land. If need be, I'm going to try and change the zoning. If I need to become mayor to do that, I'll try and do that. I don't care what battles I got to fight. And you should be the same. You should be doing the same. You should be creating the same. And in fact, here's a question I've got for all of you. There's 14 of you. It's kind of like the apostles, 15. There we go. Here's the question. I'm considering, and I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to create some kind of a web, internet sort of depository of various information. And there's at least 4 or 5 different topics I know I want to cover. One, of course, is the Catholic Church, deprivationism, that sort of thing. Another is the lies of history. And another topic could be the face on Mars stuff. And another one could be the Systema stuff. You know, I've got like 4, 5, or 6 different types of topics that I have gone very deep with in my life. And the concept is to try and create this repository of information, make like, you know, a series of videos that gradually take you through all the information. I've done that with the books, you know, but most people are becoming practically literate, so maybe doing little video series of each topic would be the way to go. Of course, that entails, you know, spending some money, spending some time that I don't have to do these videos. So it would probably have to be some kind of a subscription service. And I don't know how many of you think that would be a good idea or whatever. But, you know, we can start really small. So I don't know, I don't care if like 20 people sign up. That's good enough as a start. And obviously the people who sign up first will get a better deal than the people who come in later. So we're looking at that now. And I think it's quite doable. I think it's quite feasible. And the idea would be to put up, you know, 3, 4, 5 videos a week. Each one of them, you know, only 10, 15 minutes long, but to the point, you know, with references, very clear, and a better production than just me talking at the screen, you know, putting in some, possibly some music, possibly some video clips, possibly some stills, whatever. That's all stuff that would cost me money because I don't really know how to do that stuff. I probably have to employ somebody to do it, or, you know, work with someone, or take the time to learn to do it myself, which then means I can't do the other stuff that I need to do. So there would be a cost. I don't know what that cost would be. I would try and keep it minimal, really. But you know, like I spent months and months writing some of these books, and I put them up for sale. People buy them if they want to buy them. You know, it's not something where you would have to, no one's forcing you to join or buy anything I provide or sell or create, you know. It would be your choice, but it would be interesting if you let me know what you think about that. So that's one topic. Let me just quickly look at the chat and see if there's any comments yet. Hello, Woolly Ram. Woolly Ram, good evening, Kurgan, immortal and loyal henchman. That's good. Michael Pecker is here. The apostles and the women. Oh, when I said there's 14 of you, it's more or less like the apostles. Michael says, the apostles and the women. I am, of course, Mary Magdalene. We will have none of that tranny stuff in here, my friend. Franz Lionheart. Ah, he's changed his name. Very good. Very good, Franz. And Wooly says, is unauthorized an option? I don't think so, for a number of reasons. One, you know, my, call it subscription base, if you want to call it that, is probably, you know, much smaller or not attractive to Vox and that. And I'm not really, you know, the topics I would cover are probably not very interesting to the people that, or maybe not in line with, let's say, the unauthorized other creators, or at least not all of them. If I create something like that, it would be mine, so I wouldn't have to, you know, worry about what anybody else might or might not agree to have on there. It would obviously include, you know, a series on sedevacantist position or the sedeprivationist position, or in the Catholic Church in general. I would not, you know, I think I'd be open to other creators, but that would be pretty much a hard line in the sand. I'm certainly not going to have Tay Marshall put his videos on my whatever this thing is going to be. I haven't, thought up, call it the digital Kurganet, okay? In the digital Kurganet, there will be no space for Emma Jones, Michelle Vares, or Tay Marshall. Maybe do interviews with those people, or interviews, arena fights, whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't have people that are fake Catholics put their content on my platform. And in fact, I wouldn't have any kind of religious content that wasn't Catholic, or at least, pro actual Catholic, not pro, fake Catholic. I mean, I probably wouldn't mind having the content of someone like Professor Rachel Fulton Brown, because she doesn't take a position with regard to the Novus Ordo and whatever, and she's just covering medieval Catholicism pretty much, and does an excellent job of that. So there's no controversy there. But I certainly wouldn't have Emma Jones or Tate Marshall, come on here on the platform or provide their content. But other people could. There are a couple of people I'm thinking of possibly approaching and asking them if they're interested. And it would probably be some kind of a tiered situation where if you come in early, you get a special deal and you get access to everything. If you only want to get access to certain topics, maybe you get a lower fee and you just look at the topics you want to look at. Something like that. I don't know. That's what I'm looking at. It won't happen in the next week or two or anything like that, but I'm hoping maybe within a month, it'll be possibly up and live and running. So, Wooly Ram says, I suppose your hardline Catholic stance would not mesh well with Vox's mere Christianity. Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm friends with Vox. I like Vox. But, yeah, that was one of the things, like I said, it was Adam Piggott that sent me the link to this fake documentary, called Message in a Bottle. And it's about a 40-minute documentary, and I watched before 2 minutes are up, I wrote back to him and I said, I see heresy, where they're trying to pretend that Ratzinger is the Pope, and he is not. Anything connected to Vatican II is scum, is filth, it's a lie, and it's an insidious lie, because it's quite a well-made documentary. It's giving you quite a lot of information that most people don't know about the Carbonari and about the origins of the Freemason infiltration of the church, that as far back as 1903 there was already, cardinals that were involved in it and so on. So it's giving you some good information, and of course, there is sewage in your ice cream. And here's my question. People that say, well, yes, okay, they're not really saying that Ratzinger is a Freemasonic, child-abusing, possibly child-sacrificing scumbag who only resigned because his brother was being blackmailed for raping and abusing little kids all over the place, allegedly. And, mommy, sorry, that was my daughter just coming in. She didn't know I was streaming, but anyway. And this guy is, no one knows that he was doing that stuff, and, it's fine. They're still giving you good information. No, it's an insidious, it's a vicious lie. Because Bergoglio is obviously a Satanist at this point. I think no one can deny. He denies the divinity of Christ. He denies the Trinity. He's got a demon worshipping thing on the altar. But the insidious lies, like confused Catholics that are like, oh, but maybe Ratzinger. And then here's this documentary, and yes, and Ratzinger's really saving the church by exposing all those fake bishops and cardinals, by then doing a fake resignation that exposes the whole thing. Isn't he great? No. That is a vicious lie. That is a disgusting, vicious lie. And it's an insidious lie, because it creates the false impression that there is still, something honest or good in the Vatican. No, you do not. make any kind of compromise with these people. They are literally working for the enemy. You do not say, oh, but maybe. No, no, no. And if that makes me extreme, well, guess what? So is the truth. The truth is extreme. You can't have half the truth, 95% of the truth, good enough. No. 99.999% of the truth about God, good enough. No. It's wrong. So my approach to it is, while, I allow for the human foibles of everybody, and I was a complete heathen myself for most of my life. So I understand people can be in error out of, ignorance, out of good intentions, whatever you want. But the point is, you cannot compromise. Once you know the truth, once you know what the facts are, you cannot say, oh, well, I'm ignorant. I didn't really know. And, well, yeah, there's a little bit of sewage in my ice cream, but it's good enough for me. No. Here's my question to you. How much sewage would you be okay with eating in your ice cream? 5%? 2%? What if it's just a few molecules of, typhoid diarrhea from some Somali guy? Just a few molecules of typhoid Somalia diarrhea in your lemon-flavored ice cream. You won't even taste it. Just take a nice big spoonful. Would you go for it? And we're just talking about ice cream and possible dysentery. We're not talking about the eternal salvation of your soul. So no, I do not compromise at all with fake Catholics and fake churchins and all the other stuff. No. Willie Ram says that C.S. Lewis himself insisted that no one should remain a mere Christian. Well, he remained one though, didn't he? Rudolf Nitz says, Willie Ram, what did CSL mean with that? Still have to read his book. Willie Ram says, there is a 5-hour documentary expose on the Masons, 5 hours long, doing the rounds on Social Galactic. Yes, it is, and I believe it was a guy, I think it was Jordan that posted the link to it, or maybe, I don't know, maybe that's where I saw it. But yeah, I haven't watched it because, frankly, I know pretty much all there is to know about the Freemasons, and knowing a few more details isn't gonna improve my knowledge base or change anything in terms of what I think about those people. And I've put a lot of it in there, in that book, and a lot of it that most people haven't got a clue about. So Willie Ram says, CSL says so for clearly in the Mere Christianity, the very same book. Yeah. C.S. Lewis was, after all, British through and through, and English at that. And I always found C.S. Lewis to be a sort of mealy-mouthed, lukewarm kind of Christian. Unlike J.R. Tolkien, unlike G.K. Chesterton, which reminds me, perhaps I should have another little Chesterton quote. You know what? You've inspired me. I'm just going to open this at random. Look for a random Chesterton quote. Oh, look at this. You see, I'm just literally opened it at random somewhere. Amusement and penance. The same difference of perception arises regarding the major Christian theme of penance, for either Protestantism forsakes ascetics and sinks into moral permissiveness, or it falls into the opposite excess and hardens itself unreasonably into a Puritan form. Catholicism remains balanced on this point. It It preaches mortification, but does not destroy the joys of human nature. This is the commentator, it's not Chesterton. But look, this is one of my key points about why Protestants are retarded, and especially Calvinists. Now, this is Chesterton. When somebody says that a fast is the opposite to a feast, and yet both seem to be sacred to us, some of us will always be moved merely to say yes and relapse into an objectionable grin. When the anxious ethical inquirer says Christmas is devoted to merrymaking, to eating meat and drinking wine, and yet you encourage this pagan and materialistic enjoyment, you or I will be tempted to say, "Quite right, my boy," and leave it at that. See what I mean? When he then says, looking even more worried, "Yet you admire men for fasting in caves and deserts and denying themselves ordinary pleasures, you are clearly committed, like the Buddhists, to the opposite or ascetic principle," we shall be similarly inspired to say, "Quite correct, old bean," or "Got it first time, old top," and merely propose an adjournment for convivial refreshments. He's beautiful, isn't he? I wish I could have G.K. Chesterton for dinner. I would laugh so much, and it would be enlightening. Now, this is the commenter again. It is worth remarking that the subtle and eminent equilibrium had been glimpsed by Chesterton long before he embraced the religion of Rome. Already in 1908 he wrote, "Those countries in Europe which are still influenced by priests are exactly the countries where there is still singing and dancing and colored dresses and art in the open air. Catholic doctrine and discipline may be walls, but they are the walls of playground. Christianity is the only frame which has preserved the pleasure of paganism. The outer ring of Christianity is a rigid guard of ethical abnegation and professional priests, but inside that inhuman guard you will find the old human life dancing like children and drinking wine like men, for Christianity is the only frame for pagan freedom." Absolutely correct. And if you are shaped in the warrior crusader type, your job is to man those walls. Your job is to create those walls. Your job is to protect those walls, so that the normal citizen inside can have a good life. A Christian life, mind, with a certain amount of discipline and a certain amount of rigor, but not lack of joy, not lack of love, not lack of friendship, not lack of merrymaking at all. And because it's not long, I think I'll read it a little bit further. It should seem odd to us that G.K. Chesterton had to defend colored dresses or save wine and dancing from some mysterious public burning. Indeed, it is perhaps the discreet influence of the priests that spared us these benefits of the Reformation. In any case, the Puritan interdictions go against Chestertonian common sense. Chesterton again. A Puritan tried to be a pagan and succeeded in being a pagan who hesitated about whether he ought to go and see a girl dancing. That's the best description of a Protestant I've ever heard. Also, the modern man not only does not share, he does not even understand the unnatural aversion of the Puritans to all art and beauty in relation to religion. Yet that was the real Protestant protest, and right into the mid-Victorian time, Protestant matrons were shocked at a white gown, let alone a colored vestment. I love Chesterton. Truly, I hope I get to spend some time talking with him one day. Wooly Ram says, "I don't recall names very well. It is presented by a very intense Australian guy." Yeah, CSL was indeed an Anglican. So, a mere Christian. As he himself said, because I've read Mere Christianity, and he says, "As for myself, I am a mere Church of England." That's what he says himself. The Chesterton intermission is a great addition to the Kurgan stream. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm probably going to talk your ears off about Chesterton eventually. Yes, I read Chesterton first as an atheist, and even then it felt like I was meeting an old friend for the first time. See, I never had that experience. If I'd read Chesterton as an atheist, I would have not been able to remain in. Mind you, I was never an atheist for very long. I think roughly from the age of 7 to about maybe 18. Certainly by the age of 19, I had become agnostic because of, maths, biology, physics, chemistry. But yeah, I certainly would have probably got out of my agnosticism sooner. I think, who knows? It's an interesting question to ponder. BLR 467 says, suggestion for what Chesterton book to start with, or does it not matter? This is a really great introduction. My most loyal henchman Scout gave this to me. Protestantism as seen by G.K. Chesterton, and the author, this unpronounceable Polish name, I think, Wojciech Golonka. Is he Polish? Sounds Polish. From the university in Krakow. Yeah, he must be Polish. Is actually not, usually I quite often despise commentators because they're mostly idiots. This guy is good, but he spent his whole life pretty much studying Chesterton, so his interludes add rather than take away from the thing. There's another guy who wrote the book called The Four Witnesses, who used to be a Protestant and then converted to Catholicism, and he started to investigate the origins of Christianity to prove that Catholicism was, this fake pagan religion. And after a while, he realized, actually, I was totally wrong. Yeah, Woolley suggests orthodoxy, but you've got orthodoxy, you've got I think is it heretics. They're all good. As a little introduction, this is a good book because it's it's small. It's only about 100 and something pages, or is it 140 pages or so. Good introduction, good overview of the topics that he covers. But you do yourself a favor. Get a couple of the Chesterton books, and it doesn't matter which one, just start reading them. It's great if you have the time because it will give you some food for thought. And okay, so 18 of you, I'm about to say goodnight. Unless I would appreciate if you guys tell me, whether you would be interested in this. I was thinking as a thing to have like at least 4 or 5 different topics. One on the Catholic Church, history of the Catholic Church. One on general lies of history. And I could probably do 20 videos on that just off the top of my head. Then there's the Face on Mars stuff, if you're interested in that. There's Systema things, possibly hypnosis things. And my idea is to like just charge to cover the costs of producing this and the time it takes and effort from other people that, we all have stuff to do, we all have work. But I don't know, maybe like $10 a month or something like that. And the idea would be that every week you add at least one video to each of the topics. So let's say if there's 4 or 5 topics, let's say there's 5 topics, you get a video every day on one of the topics, and if there's 4 topics, you'd get 4 videos a week, let's say. So it's a continuous progression, and started out maybe like, I don't know, $10 or something a month for the first whatever 100 people that join. It's something that the setup fees, there are some costs, there are some costs for payment processors and stuff like that. I've got my IT guru looking at it, and he thinks it's doable, but obviously it has to be viable because it would take time for both him, myself, and others. So Chad says yes, he's interested. Okay, we got one guy. You can find most of Chesterton books in audio format on YouTube and LibriVox for free. Yeah. Oh. Pardon me. I personally prefer the physical books. I've bought Chesterton books on Kindle, but it's like, they're the kind of books I want to scribble in the margins of, you know? So, yeah. And Wooly's also interested. He can spare $10. I mean, look at that. Wooly, who's being imprisoned in Israel for some debt payment, is willing to spend $10 a month on the digital kurganet, and that's why we'll have to get him out of there. And by the way, I've had quite a few emails from several of you that said that you would be willing to help Wooly to pay off his debts that he's incurred once he knows what that figure is. I forwarded him, I think, 1 or 2 of the emails, I don't know. So thanks for that. You know, like I keep saying, one of the things that continues to amaze me is the loyalty of the most loyal henchmen and this Catholic community we're creating. It's Michael Pecker, hey, Greenie Houdini, she just popped in, I think. So, you know, it's very hard to describe the level of commitment that people in the flesh are showing here in the kurganet. And it's easy to pretend, it's easy to assume, you know, online, you're a guy behind the screen, yeah, I'm all for it. It's something else when you see guys grifting 12 hours a day straight for no pay, nothing other than being part of that community. And you are mostly the recipient of that hard work. It's quite humbling. And, you know, we're all human, so we're all, oh, thank you, Noventilian, another interested. And, you know, there are days where I'm a rude fuck. There are days when they piss me off. There are days when we all piss each other off. And that's human, that's normal. But the amazing thing is that because we're all Catholic, the level of commitment is unreal. It's something I've never experienced, even with my long-term friends that I did martial arts with for decades. You'd get like 1 or 2 good friends, but you wouldn't get a bunch of people, strangers even, with completely different ways of being, ways of talking, ways of thinking, that, however, all pull at the same cart when, you know, the going gets tough, sort of thing. It's undescribable, quite honestly. And, you know, there is some kind of reflection of that here in the stream, because it's always the same, you know, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 people maybe. And you know, some of them, are a couple of them are, I'm sure, are just gammas in training that are finding out what I'm saying, but that's fine. You know, as long as the gammas behave, they can be there. You know, like Ipsy he's been here a few times, and he's all right. You know, I quite like the guy. Probably be all right guy to have a beer with. But you know, the point is, there is a certain level of loyalty, and our numbers are small. They're never going to be huge, because, you know, I'm an extremist. I make no compromise with the truth, or with churchians, or any of the 40,000 denominations of fake Christianity that the Protestants ascribe to. So yeah, it's Wooly says, I don't have the peace of mind right now to really sink into a book. I know the feeling, buddy. I also don't have the time, but yeah, I suppose video is easier. And, you know, $10 a month is what? A pretty cheap book once a month. I certainly buy more than 12 books a year. So I think it's a fair number. And I don't know what the number of people, you know, if we were doing $10, I'd have to work out the maths with my buddy, but I don't know what the number of people that we need to make it break even, at least. You know, if we include for people's time and so on, it's probably going to be a couple of hundred people. I don't know. But if we don't try, it won't happen. If we don't do it, no one else will. So we've got to get it going. Michael Becker says the community that a shared faith gives is uncompliable. The cult is slow but growing. It is. And it's not slow. You know, if you read Rodney Stark and the conversion, how Catholicism spread and so on, in a couple of generations, you can take over nations, and people are saying, oh, well, but a couple of generations means I won't be around. Well, it's not about you. It's not about whether you're happy. It's not about whether your life is hard. It's about the truth. You might just be that unlucky fucker who's the special ops guy who has to strap on that vest and pull the pin on all the C4 he's wearing in the enemy compound. You might be that guy. It's a hard one, but hey, that guy too has a place, in the special ops team. And you might be the lucky guy who's the general of the special ops teams and doesn't get his hands all that dirty. Lucky you. But we all have our purpose. We all have our way of being, And the amazing thing is that Simon the amputee said something when I had that interview with him where he said, well, that community of yours sounds great, but I don't see how I could contribute anything because, I'm in a wheelchair. And I'm like, dude, there is so much you can do. This is a guy who in a wheelchair went up like Everest or whatever. He did like some amazing stuff. And I'm like, what? You don't know how to contribute? I mean, your arms work, your brain works. You could like transcribe books or do audios, do videos, count olives. When we collect the olives, you can just count the olives by hand. I don't know. There's plenty you can do. So, Woolly Ram said, how did our Lord put it? Once you put your hand to the plow, don't look back. I probably butchered that verse. Yeah, Or as my grandmother used to say, help yourself and heaven helps you, Greenie Houdini, I think, is probably had a bit too much to drink. I caught a huge alligator gar today, scored. Yeah. I've finished my my Aperol, but I think Greenie might be on something stronger. Adam Brown, man, I hate missing these. Blasted real life. I'm in a wheelchair much of the time. Great point about what we can do. Okay, Aaron, you're in a wheelchair. Much of the time means some of the time you're out of it. I hope that means that you still have some use of your legs. And just so you know, one of my friends, Henry, who's actually been on the stream a couple of times, he, when I met him, he was between a wheelchair and 2 walking sticks. And we started doing Systema with him and a couple of other guys. I used to do like 4 hours mini seminars, really, once a week or something like that. After 4 months, that guy went from being in a wheelchair or using 2 walking sticks to stumble along to do a 10-day tour of England by bicycle. So, no word of a joke. You can ask him; he'll tell you. Maybe I'll have him on stream one of these days. We had threatened to do another stream and I forgot about it. Now maybe I'll remember to ping him an email. Bolgar Wolf says, what is this Kurgan about? Is he based or cringed? Well, make up your own mind, Bolgar. There's like some 230 videos with this one. I suggest you start at video number 1, which is only 10 minutes long, and video number 2. They're slightly out of order. You'll see them at around video number 7, I think. And make up your own mind, dude. Don't worry about who everybody else thinks. Greenie Houdini says, I don't drink, but when I do, it's pina coladas. Yep. In the rain, right? Benjamin Cook Kurgan is based and Christ-pilled, Bolgar. Nice. Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it, Benjamin. Thank you. Aaron says, yep, I have 2 prosthetic hips, but I have a hand-powered cycle with 3 wheels. Wow, Systema sounds awesome. Yeah, it really kind of is, despite what the detractors will try and tell you, but then those detractors have never encountered or spent any time with anyone who's actually a good exponent of Systema, and if they did, they would change their tune in about 13 seconds. 5 if the other guy actually wanted them to change their mind quicker. So Woolly Ram says, I don't drink, but when I do, it's cask strength bourbon. I do recall, Mr. Woolly Ram, that you also seem to have a penchant for vodka. And Greeny Woodini says, Kurgan's awesome. Some men might feel intimidated, though. And that's without me having my clothes on. I will check video number 1. Well, good, Bolgar. That is an unusual response. I generally get some millennials saying, well, why should I? Well, why are you here? You know, but that's good. That's nice. You're open-minded. I like that. That's impressive. See, after the huge gamma mass graves, we've got a better quality of representative, even of the gammas here. It's great. So, well, I was sleepy. Now you guys kind of woke me up. So, I don't know. You got any questions to throw at me? You got any comments? Topics of conversation for the next 10-15 minutes or so? You know, I gotta say one thing about Italy. I've always been pretty down on my own, you know, forced nation, because of course I'm not Italian. I'm Venetian. I'm in exile from my own country because it was, you know, usurped by the Italian government along with others. By the way, in case you see a slight rising of smoke, it's because I've got one of these beautiful things which I remember from childhood. They are basically a poisonous coil that wards off mosquitoes and other nasty bugs that bite your ass. And, you know, I'm basically inhaling this slight venomous green stuff, but it's got a pretty pleasant smell, so I don't mind. And the mosquitoes in Italy are vicious, man, because mosquitoes hardly ever bite me. I think I'm just too poisonous for them. You know, they'll taste me once and they'll be like, oh, this guy's just full of bile or something. I don't know. Greenie is listening while she cooks dinner. Excellent. Just go easy on that, you know, leftover wine. Woolly Ram says, Godspeed, Bolgar. The Kurgan's backlog is a voyage. Yeah. You know, I try to give titles to my videos that make some sense, although lately they've been sort of streams of consciousness. And that's also partly why I want to go to this this format of having a series of video to cover a topic. And, you know, there'll be however many videos you need to cover that topic. I mean, some topics are pretty endless, like Systema or the Catholic Church, but even then, even within those topics, you can, you know, pick out subtopics, let's say. So like you could, you know, have an introduction to what sedeprivatianism is. You could have a series of the early Catholic Church. You could have a series of the schism between the East and the West, and so on. Greeny Houdini says, I was late to your shirtless stream, but I watched it. Yeah, you didn't just watch it. You paused it. I think you paused it. Yep. As soon as, you know, I should have done the Matthew McConaughey impression when he goes, all right, which is something that I and the most loyal henchman Scott do all the time, because we finish something or we manage to break something or whatever, and either him or I will go, all right, which is from one of Matthew McConaughey's films. I've actually always enjoyed his film. The only one I didn't see was the one where he's like some guy with AIDS or whatever, some gay guy with AIDS. But I like Mud, although I didn't see that from the beginning. I missed it. I saw it on TV. It was quite a good film. I also like the silly one where he's like some treasure hunter. I forget the name. You know, he's done the one with where he's a lawyer. He's done a couple of lawyers, I think. And another one that was actually surprisingly good, though of course quite degenerate, was where I think in the film he is dead, and it's the story of his son. And I'm not going to give you the spoilers, but his father, which was Matthew McConaughey, was the sheriff, and you kind of trying to figure out, was he a bench sheriff? You know, he was kind of a womanizer, what was going on, and it's quite a good film actually. Um, yeah, uh, but yeah, I quite enjoy good old Matthew's films. And Willie Ram says, had an amusing thought about Catholic guilt. I found that I can fully enjoy my old favorite vices. There's always an inner voice chiding and standing aloof. I can't fully enjoy. Oh, right, that's what I thought you meant. You can't fully enjoy your vice. Yeah, that's the thing when you become Catholic. You know, all of a sudden, those things that used to be like, oh yeah, that feels good. Now you're like, oh yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. Can't be doing this and saying a Hail Mary. That just don't. No, that's just wrong. But you know, it grows on you, and for some of us that have been quite depraved for many years, it may take a little time, you know. LS16 says, Wooly, me too. Once you know, that voice will be there to remind you. If you're really honest with yourself, brutally honest with yourself, which I have generally been throughout my life, you'll realize that that little voice was always there, even when you were a supposed atheist. It was right there, telling you in your ear, you know this shit is wrong. You just didn't have, shall we say, an outside evidence that proved it beyond shadow of a doubt. Which is why I relate to the Apostle Thomas more than any of the others. Thomas was my guy, man. As I've said before, you know, if I'd been one of the 12 apostles, which is very doubtful because I don't think I was anywhere near good enough to be one of those guys, but if I had been, and you know, when Jesus came back from the dead, he hung out with all the other guys and I wasn't there, and the next day they're like, hey, he's back, he's risen from the dead. As I've always said, I'd be like, you fuckers, you all smoked some really strong shit and got pissed, broken drunk, made up some fucking fairy tale. I mean, that must have been some good shit if you all had the same hallucination, but there's no way you're gonna fool me. That would have been me, you know? And I don't know. I think Thomas was more polite about it, but Michael Pecker says, do you think that other homo species exist with us and most of us don't know it? Well, there's a lot of homosexuals. Funnily enough, I've recently been sort of going, I haven't got the time to go down new rabbit holes, but I don't know if you guys know this, but it's something I've known for a long time, but I was just considering it a bit more. There was, in the human fossil record, there is quite a huge bunch of stuff from about 50, 60, 80,000 years ago to about 30,000 years ago, when everything gets sort of wiped out. And then we're left with, like, you know, Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens, and then Homo sapiens, sapiens, that's it. But there was a bunch of humanoids of different sizes and types. And yeah, I know. I read Vox's recent thing about how Neanderthal man was this brute, cannibalistic scum. I don't buy that. I think that's just some guy trying to pervert what I think about the Neanderthal guys. I think the Neanderthal were probably more individualistic, probably more telepathic, and I kind of agree with Texas Arcana that Homo sapiens tend to be more mechanized and more robotic in their approach to things, and more the majority wins kind of thing. I also find that people that have a percentage of Neanderthal in their DNA tend to be smarter, tend to be a bit more diverse in their thinking, more 3D thinking instead of 2D thinking. So, you know, I have my doubts about that particular blog post that Vox did on the Neanderthals. But they used to be like really tiny humans. They were like basically, they're commonly known as hobbits. They've got a Homo floriensis or something like Florianus or Floriensis or something like that. And they were basically hobbits. They were like 3 foot tall, which is funny because that's about the size of my 2-year-old. And I just think, man, imagine a whole bunch of these guys running around. I mean, they'd get eaten by big cats or something. Well, not my kid, because I reckon he'd kick the shit out of a cat. But, a lynx or something could probably kill one of these guys easily. And then there were these other humanoids that were basically 3-meter tall, literally giants, like a meter and a bit more than I am now. That was their average height. So, do I think there were abominable snowmen, Yeti and all that? Yeah, they actually existed. Whether they look like Yeti, like the abominable snowmen or not, who knows? I've certainly met some specimen of humans that, due to their lack of intelligence, mode of behavior, etc., I would put closer to bonobos or chimps than human beings. And there's a lot of those around, but I don't know. I think, supposedly, genetically, they're Homo sapiens too, although I have my personal doubts. But I don't know that there are other, the Earth has been pretty well explored, although there are places that are kept sort of hidden. So I don't know. Anything is possible. I don't really ascribe to Vox's throwaway comment at the end of his post, where I think he said that at this point he wouldn't be surprised if some of these Neanderthal, ogres were all living in caves in Switzerland under the Alps and congregated at Davos on how to cannibalize the rest of us. I mean, it's kind of funny, but you kind of see his point, right? So LS16 says that's true. Different take. The faith hands that voice a megaphone and a cattle prod. Yeah. When you've got the faith, when you've seen the bedrock of truth, that little voice is no longer just a nagging thing you can keep quiet behind 3 or 4, heavy doors. It's sort of like deet, and you're like, yeah, I've got this little oh, So yeah, I agree. Woolly Ram Neanderthals seem to have been much more case-selecting than Cro-Mag. Exactly. Which makes me think they were not quite the brutish beasts that they were presented in that article. Greeny Houdini says, speaking of the Pope, I was watching the interview, it was from the 70s, and this Pope was talking about how they praised Lucifer. Lol, crazy. What? I don't know which interview you were watching, but that'll be, if you've got a link for that, that'll be interesting. Then again, which bottle are you on, Greeny? Yeah, it is. Woolly Ram says it's difficult to know to what degree we have been lied about the human species. A lot. I absolutely believe there were, well, I don't just believe it, there's fossil evidence for the giant types. So they definitely existed, and I believe there's some decent fossil evidence of giants that's just been gradually disappeared. And there is also something called the Emerald Tablets, which Joseph Farrell talks about in one of his books. I think it was the Giza Death Star series of books. There's 3 books in the Giza Death Star series. Somewhere in there, he mentions how the war in Iraq was really to get a hold of these Emerald Tablets, which were some highly technologically advanced information. Almost in a similar vein to what Ravencroft described at Hitler invading, I think it was Austria, to take over a museum that had the Holy Lance, the Spear of Longinus, because anybody with that spear wouldn't lose any battles. And that happened. They did. It's weird, like you've got these wars, and the first thing they do is like go to a museum and raid it of all the artifacts that are in there. So quite interesting. The first deity says, do you think the Watchers could have been another alt species like Neanderthal? No. Short answer. Slightly longer answer. I think the Watchers were spiritual beings along the lines of fallen angel type things, but not necessarily the fallen angels, some other kind of entity that were given the nations to look after, and they totally fucked it up. And these Watchers in some way were responsible for the production of the Nephilim, which were also incarnate, but had, a spiritual element of them was from these Watchers. So they were essentially cursed from, they were bad. So that's my take on it, but I don't waste too much time thinking about that stuff. Rab says, did you hear that Rush V converted to the Russian Orthodox Church? Yes, I heard that long ago. I met Rush before he was, schismatic in the fake Orthodox Church. But he's going. He's got his own journey to do. I actually attended one of his seminars because I'm a curious guy. I went to all sorts of things. I've done 3-day. I don't know what you call them. Seminars is not the word. 3-day encounters or whatever of like religious figures like Amma the hugging saint and like all sorts of weirdos. I've gone into the Dianetics thing. They tried to convince me to join the org for a billion years or whatever it is with Dianetics, because I just infiltrate all these weird cults and I just check it out to see like how they brainwash people and what I trained in hypnosis, so I understand how the human mind works, and it's quite revealing if you attend all sorts of different churches and different I went to Protestant churches, those happy clappy evangelists that are like the strippers of the fake Christianity. They just like dance all the time, and you can see that the priest is trained in NLP, but like he's badly trained in it. I mean, like I could, he's screwing up his lines. He's doing these false inductions. It's just like it was quite entertaining. And I generally tend to be quite disruptive in those things because there are things that you can do even in a crowd of 3,000 people. I would get the attention of the guy who's speaking on the platform there on the stage, and would like screw up their brainwash talk, and that because that ask me, an individual in a crowd of 3,000 people, that decide to ask me a question or that say something that I just, and it'll be very subtle things, but there are things you can do, like, again, if you've done Systema, if you understand how this stuff works, you can attract the right kind of attention or the wrong kind of attention, or you can influence somebody without them even knowing that you're influencing them. And I only did this stuff to, to these fake gurus and whatever, just to like make them look like the idiots they are, frankly. And occasionally to a guy that was a bit in trouble on a stage, was doing a presentation and it wasn't going very well for him. So I help them out by giving them cues on when they're doing the right thing, when they're doing the wrong thing, and then it helps them redirect their talk in a way that becomes more positive. It's quite interesting, it's just a little side skill or whatever, but it's, the thing about Rouge is he never struck me as a particularly effective pickup artist, despite what a lot of people think. And he's clearly had some confidence issues. he's got a little bit of a stammer, that sort of thing. And, you know, he obviously tried to better himself and thinking that the hedonistic approach to pussy was the way to better himself. I can relate because I never, you know, I only found out about the pickup artists and that because the people that I used to know, friends of mine, like saw the number of women that I was going through in any given week, and they thought, oh, you should read this kind of book, The Game. It's you know, there are guys like you, they do what you do, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I read the book, and I'm like, no, these guys are like lying more, you know, losers that are just trying to better themselves. That's I don't do any, you know, this is not. I'm not about this. It's just I like women, you know, whatever. But he's on a clearly any journey of spiritual improvement. So, you know, he's Armenian, so he's cursed from birth, and hairy, you know, another sign of obvious demonic influence. But aside from that, you know, he's trying his best, and you know, orthodoxy, fake orthodoxy, is at least a lot closer to the truth than any Protestant denomination. So you know, good luck to him. I hope he perseveres and eventually comes to the one true faith. Michael Pecker says this could be wrong, but I've always seen humans as a bunch of subspecies or breeds, different bone structure, skin, frequency of twinning, etc. A bunch of subspecies or breeds. Okay, I don't know what you mean. I mean, we've got different races, like, you know, black, white, yellow, red, whatever. But I don't know how that splits into the, you know, if you look those biological trees, I don't know that we're on any particular different branch or so on. Wooly Ram says Genesis presents a general creation of the human species and the specific creation of Adam and Eve. Then the fallen intermarry with the daughters of Adam. Then we're told that in the time of Noah, all flesh corrupted. Certainly makes you think. Yeah. Michael says that Wooly Ram, isn't there a theory that says that Noah's children represents the different races? I think that might be the case, but Hakan Feldman, 1 July, the 154th birthday of Canada. Who cares? We don't celebrate the birthdays of gay nations. Wooly Ram, very broadly, Shem is the father of the Semitic clans, Japheth of the European clans, Sham of the African clans. But the Nephilic remnants are not accounted for, nor are the Eastern clans, India, China, etc. Aha! And perhaps that's where the Nephilitic remnants lie. Rab says, since his conversion, Russia has been banning and suspending status on his forum. Well, you know, nothing new there. The Orthodox have been backstabbing cowards since the first beginnings. So, you know, like I said, I wish him luck, but his religion is not the true one, so, you know. Wooly Ram, I would love to raid the Vatican library for the oldest Jewish, Christian, and Greek mythological biblical commentaries. Oh, yes. Who knows that they haven't already burnt a lot of that stuff, you know. But yeah, if the Kurganate ever reclaims the Vatican, you know, after we have to exercise every single stone on it, that will be the next job, going through the Vatican's library. Okay, I'm tired again, and it's been over an hour, so I'd like to thank you all for coming here at the usual extreme short notice. But thank you very much, and thank you for telling me that there's at least a handful of you that would be interested in the dedicated sort of group of videos to different topics. It's a useful cross-section, because I think 4 or 5 of you said that you'd be interested, and you've got about 17, 20 of you here, or something like that. So thank you very much for your feedback and your input, as always. And may I wish you the very best continuation of your week. Good night.